838 WCRF, Mornings with Brian. And if you want to keep up on our coverage of the war in Israel, which we've had extensive discussions with theologians, political scientists, and the like, all you have to do is text the word Israel to 440-546-2255. Text Israel to us, and we will send you back a link with an exhaustive list of resources, not only from Moody Bible Institute, but also just from our show in particular. Because, you know, the war is still going, of course, and probably will be for quite a while yet. And a friend of ours is keeping his eye on it, and his name was one of the first signers of an evangelical statement in support for Israel. So we're bringing him on. Dan Darling, Director of the Land Center for Cultural Engagement at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. Welcome back, Dan.
Hey, great to be on with you this morning.
So what's the temperature at Southwest Baptist Theological Seminary in terms of the war in Israel? What's the chatter there?
Well, I think a lot of people, like most people around the world, are really just shocked and horrified by the Hamas attacks on Israel, and just the kind of level of barbarity and depravity that you see, especially as more and more comes out. It's hard to imagine that we're seeing this sort of violence against Jewish people just because they're Jewish, and really kind of it recalls your mind even back to 20th century and the Holocaust and all those things. And I think also people are, praying for peace, praying for the peace of Jerusalem, praying for the peace of that region. We cared too also about the civilians in Palestine are kind of trapped by poor leadership and really don't have a lot of agency there as well. So it's just really an awful situation.
Now, an organization you used to work for, the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention, has come out with a statement that they're trying to get people to sign. So why put together a statement like this, and who is this organization for those who don't know?
Yeah, so the ERLC is the public policy entity of the Southern Baptist Convention, the largest Protestant denomination in the country. And, I worked there for 8 years as VP of Communications. And so their new president, Brent Leatherwood, and I, last weekend, put our heads together and said, could we get evangelical leaders to sign a statement in support of Israel, just to say, hey, we in the wake of these horrific attacks, can we stand with you, and really spell out and help teach people kind of why we support Israel in terms of, and when we say we support Israel, I mean their right to exist, the right to defend themselves. Doesn't mean we support every single thing that the government's always done. We wouldn't do that with any government, but also kind of lay out why their right to defend themselves, just war theory, and some of these ideas, and also pray for Palestinian Christians and pray for peace in the Middle East.
How challenging is it to come up with a statement where you could get a wide variety of Christians to sign?
It really is, because everyone has ideas about the language. Everyone has ideas about, what does this convey, or they have certain commitments with their own organizations. But I was really heartened to see quite a few people sign, leaders from across denominations, across sort of tribes, if you will, sign it. People who have a variety of theological perspectives and eschatological perspectives. As Christians, we have a variety of views of how we think the end times will play out. We all believe Jesus is coming soon, but we all have different ideas how that'll play out, and that factors into how we think about Israel. But I think all of us coming together and saying, anti-Semitism is evil. These attacks on innocent Jewish civilians are evil, and we can stand against that and support Israel as a nation, as a right to exist and to defend themselves within the constraints of just war theory and the rules of war.
And I did notice that your name is the second one on the list, and I guess I'm kind of gleaning here that it's because you helped write this. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I helped draft the initial language, and we kind of sent it around to various leaders to get input on that. So and I think for me, it's beyond just being horrified like everybody is by what we saw. My own personal family history. My mom, my late mother was Jewish, and her grandparents, my great-grandparents, came over in the 20th century from Eastern Europe, escaping the pogroms over there. So there's a sort of personal history there. I've been to Israel 4 times, so I really love the country, and I love the people there.
Well, one of the bold declarations in the statement of support for Israel is calling these the actions of Hamas anti-Semitic. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because I know a lot of people agree with you.
Well, I think we have to take Hamas, what they say, at face value. If you look at the charter, Hamas's charter, it is explicitly stated they want to destroy Jewish people. They want to kill Jewish people. If you listen to what they have said in some of their gatherings and protests and all that, is that it's not just about the condition of the Palestinians, the plight of the Palestinians, which is, we all agree is really terrible, but it's about they want to kill and eliminate Jewish people. And it's just pure and rank anti-Semitism. It sounds no different than some of the things we heard out of, Germany and across Europe in the 1930s, 1940s. And it's really sad, but it's also unsurprising. Jewish people have faced this their entire existence. Anti-Semitism is the oldest acceptable prejudice in the world. And but it is still shocking to think, 80 years since the Holocaust, we're still hearing this language and seeing these acts.
Yeah. Well, it's 8:45. Our guest is Dan Darling. Again, he's director of the Land Center for Cultural Engagement at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. And he helped draft the Evangelical statement in support of Israel that countless evangelical leaders around the country have signed. We're going to look more at what this statement says as we analyze what are they finding unity on, including just war theory, in just a minute. Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF. It is 8:51. If you're just joining us, we're in the midst of a conversation with Dan Darling, director of the Land Center for Cultural Engagement at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. He was one of the original signers and helped put together a recent statement called the Evangelical Statement in Support of Israel. And we're kind of going through what's in that, as so many folks in evangelicalism have signed this thing. Now, someone who's listening to this, Dan, might go, wow, we're Christians. We're supposed to turn the other cheek. We're supposed to be peacemakers. How could you support war?
Well, as a matter of principle, I think Christians shouldn't want wars. They shouldn't long for war. We shouldn't. War is a symptom of a fallen and broken world. But I do think there is moral and Christian justification for war that is just, for war of self-defense, war in defense of things that are good and right. I think of Jesus when he interacted with the Roman centurion. I've heard Russell Moore talk about this well, and he rebuked the centurion for his sin, but he didn't rebuke him for being a soldier. He didn't call him out of that profession. And there is a respected tradition of pacifism within Christianity, but I feel like most Christians have had some doctrine of just war to protect the innocent, to fight against evil. And so I think, unfortunately, it's an unfortunate reality in a broken world. And of course, we look for the day when Christ returns and there will be no more war, as it says in Revelation, and no more death and no more suffering.
And, I think a lot of evangelicals are unaware of the idea that just war theory has been around for a long time. I think it was developed by the Roman Catholics. Is that correct?
Well, it really goes back to Augustine, and there's several principles with it. And I think, it has to be a just cause, has to be right intent, there has to be legitimate authority, has to be a last resort, there has to be proportionality of means and right conduct. So it's not just a blank check justification for every nation going to war. A lot of wars around the world are not just wars. They're wars of provocation, wars of conquest. But there are times where, there are times where a nation has to protect its people. Romans 13 does give the authority of the sword to civil authorities to protect the innocent and to punish evil. But it has to be very, very clearly spelled out, and it has to be conducted rightly. Just because you're on the right side doesn't mean you can do, as a nation, whatever you want. And so you have to do everything you can to, not to protect civilians. You should not intentionally target civilians, and there's all sorts of things tied up in that. So I think it's really important for us as Christians to think well about this.
Yeah, and I think even more, there's some who might be concerned saying, wow, are you careful in the statement that so many are signing to value the dignity of Palestinian people separate from Hamas? How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I think it's important we do that, and I think I'm thankful that we did mention Palestinian civilians. We did mention Palestinian. Many of them are Christians doing difficult ministry there. And really, our hearts go out to the people of Palestine because they have, been trapped in this sort of unwinnable situation. Many times their rulers have not had their best interests at heart. They take aid money and they get themselves rich on it. They do not improve the plight of their people, and so it's really difficult. And even now, there are warnings for them to evacuate, and Hamas is telling them not to evacuate. Hamas uses civilians as human shields. It's a really terrible situation, and it's really like a lot of places around the world where ordinary people are not led very well, and they are subject to really evil rulers, and they're in terrible. And really, we should care about that, and our hearts should go out to them. We should try to help them as best we can.
Again, Dan Darling is director of the Land Center for Cultural Engagement at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. If folks want to learn more about you or even get their hands on this evangelical statement in support of Israel, how do they do it?
Well, you can find out more. You can go to, really, if you want to see the statement, go to erlc.com. Find out more about the Land Center. You can go to thelandcenter.org. You can also follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter at Dan Darling, and I have a website, danieldarling.com. A lot of places to find kind of what I'm doing.
Well, thanks again, Dan Darling. We always enjoy our time with you. We'll have to talk again soon, okay?
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep. God bless.